All
Can you
right.
speak?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh wow,
Can you hear
that's
me?
you are bassy. I like it.
Okay, perfect. So we haven't done this in a long time. I started this series many months ago. The first guest we had was DJ Marky D, and I decided now to get some more content. We're gonna do another iteration of this with a couple more DJs, and of course, we also want to tell your story, right? Because you obviously have been around the block for a while in terms of DJing. You've been on our channel since what? What's it, 2016?
2016, that's correct.
2016. And there's been a long journey. People have wondered what happened to you because we said goodbye to you a few years ago, and now you're back. So we got to tell your story. First and foremost, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me
Uh,
on. Yeah, everything has been very interesting lately, just in the world, in my personal life, and especially in the music scene. Things have really started to come back into full force now that COVID's over. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously you have a pretty big story to tell here, and let's take it back. Let's take it back to the very beginning. Okay, you grew up in Toronto,
Yes, yes, I grew up in East York, so.
East York, East York. How'd you get into DJing? How'd you get into music?
Getting into music, that's perhaps more of a complicated question. My father was very big into music. So I grew up in a very musical household. Music was always on. And then once I was at least a decent enough age to start listening to music myself, not just, what my dad would put together on a mixtape for me. Because yes, my dad did used to make me mixtapes. It was pretty awesome. But I
Um,
started to hear music. I mean, my friends' older brothers were a big part of it and started to hear a lot of the sounds that were going on in the 90s. Um, was in touch with some family overseas, and one thing came to another, and started to get some tapes. Back for I don't know if all of your listeners are going to remember cassette tapes, but they were a pretty great form of media back in the day. And yeah, but a lot of those tapes I used to get were of different genres, but some of the ones that really kind of stuck to me were the Eurodance sounds and the Albertino tapes, particularly. Then I actually kept those tapes up until I left for the monastery, believe it or not. So, and I've played a lot of the songs from those tapes onto the Euronation set. Sorry, I'm sorry, I probably over answered that question, but that's how I got into
I don't
music
know.
as a little boy, and then I started to kind of particularize. Once I got an internet connection, that's when everything changed. That's when I could research music. That's when I could find out about new stuff, and from that was a springboard into pretty much everything else.
Wow. So you were well, I mean, were you ever into any other types of music or what?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to this day, I listen to many different genres of music. I kind of got out of Eurodance come the or beginning of the 2000s when everything kind of started to shift away. Then I
Mm,
was listening to a lot of death and black metal. Used to play in death and black metal bands, grindcore bands, and I listened
hmm.
to metal with a side of what was coming up at the time, what we now call like new style Italo, but also all over the board. I mean, I still listen to a lot of like progressive rock, a lot of jazz, classical, a lot of different vocal music. So yeah, I've always had a very I try to have I wouldn't want to say a diverse palette because that sounds a little pretentious, but I try to be open to almost every type of music.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. It's important, right? Because it's always good to have variety, or else you're gonna get sick of stuff, right? Like for me, I get sick of I never get sick of Euro, right? But I gotta listen to other stuff too, to keep things varied. Yeah, so you grew up with music and everything, and when did you start DJing? How old were you?
I bought I mean I had records since I the first record I ever bought I was 12 years old, and I was very familiar with actually records and turntables and everything. But then it's when I bought my second turntable. How old would I have been? or I don't know. I would say I think I was probably 20 or 21. I got my second turntable, and that's when I really started to, DJ, quote unquote. AKA, I had two belt-driven turntables.
Oh, wow.
I would not actually beat match songs because these were old 70s turntables, and I was using a Marantz uh, hi-fi, like a high fidelity stereo as my mixer. So that was not really DJing, but friends would come over, I'd play songs, and yeah, so I guess that's the first time I started DJing. But seriously, it was a couple of years later when I actually bought two Technics turntables, and I actually bought I think my first mixer was a Pioneer, if I recall correctly. But anyway, and then professionally, I didn't really start to DJ until 2009. I think was the first time when actually someone paid me to do it. It wasn't just me showing up to friends' houses or friends' house parties with a crate of records and turntables and annoying everybody.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's one thing I remember from you. I remember when we first started, when we brought you onto the broadcast and everything, I used to see pictures and everything of you and your setup, and it was all old school, man. I mean, obviously you started with the belt turntables, but you had a lot of vinyl. Like, you were old school, and you still are, I guess, right?
Yeah, I had a lot of records.
Yeah.
I mean, at my very peak, I had about 10,000 pieces of vinyl.
How much money did you spend on that?
You know what? I don't even want to know. I've a lot of people do ask me that, and I can say that just from collecting rarities, especially that number is almost unlimited as to what you can spend. And
Right.
I mean, I got good deals here and there, but some very rare pieces of vinyl. And also being a collector, I wanted to have, if there was something that was limited to 100 copies, I wanted to have 3 of them, or I wanted to have 4 of them.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, for no real good reason. It was kind of like, to have them was great, but it was also, I guess, there's a bit of like internet bragging rights and stuff. But yeah, so
Were you making some coin off that? Were you selling them or what?
no, everything I bought I kept.
Really?
And I would buy full collections off people, and sometimes I would get these absolutely useless records, like that I would never play or anything, and I usually just donated those because it's like I'm not going to try to sell these. Well, I'm going to sell them for $1 a piece or something. And actually, there's a bar in Toronto that I used to DJ at before, and part of their decoration on their wall, actually one entire length of the bar is covered in records. All of those are records from one of like my old collection. So there's a bunch of bootleg records and a bunch of random stuff that like people would have in their collections. So yeah. But the 10,000 I had was all stuff that I liked and would have played, or I would enjoy in some way. So I didn't just have a bunch of filler. I did cull it somewhat often.
What bar was it? I mean, what bar are your records in?
Oh, it's a Baseline Music Bar over on Ossington and Bloor.
Ossington and Bloor. Yeah, that's a small spot.
It's a small spot. Yeah. The owner there. I mean, I haven't really gone in a while. I pop in every once in a while to say hello, but yeah, it's yeah. I mean, for a long time we were playing there multiple times a month. We would like different promoters would throw events, sometimes weeknights, weekends. It was always a lot of fun there. We enjoyed ourselves.
Wow. So if anybody can't get the chance to see Davide, just go to Baseline and see his records on the wall.
And and you can actually tell their mind because I would write my name on my records. So you see DJ Davide written on some of them. And also you'll see some really peculiar stuff and you're like, who on earth would have this? And then you're like, oh, honestly, now you know that it came from these strange archives of mine.
That's a Baseline on Ossington and Bloor for anybody wondering, here in Toronto. Yeah. So obviously, you started doing gigs back in 2009, and do you even remember your first gig?
Yeah, I do.
Tell us
It
about it. I'm
was,
curious.
I think it was very shortly after um, Savage Garden had changed over to being Nocturne. And there was a series of events which I really can't remember the name of right now, but they
But we're
would
talking
have.
about like a place, not
Yeah, oh yes, yes,
yeah.
not the
Okay.
band. No, no.
Not the band.
There used to be a
Okay.
venue, Bathurst and Queen area called Savage
Okay.
Garden.
Okay.
I don't know the details, but it closed and then the space reopened as a place called Nocturne.
Okay.
I trying to remember. I don't honestly. I'm gonna probably kick myself after this because I don't remember if it was Savage Garden towards the end or if it was Nocturne at the beginning. But there was anyway. It doesn't matter. There was a promoter who pretty much I talked to him on email and MSN, and I sent him my horrendous mix that like I would never even I wouldn't hearing it now I would never have sent it to a promoter. And he's like, oh yeah, sure you can play. And again, I went up and I did like a half-hour set, and then I found out later that he just wanted bodies up there, and I think I got paid like $20 or something. It was yeah
Ah.
yeah.
Well, who
So
knows? Maybe it was better than you thought, right? And you're just being hard on yourself or something.
it's possible. I mean, if I recall correctly, because I was playing on vinyl, I'm pretty sure I didn't have a single clean mix. And in a half-hour mix, that's only like, you know, I think maximum 7 or 8 tunes. So if every single one was a terrible transition, yeah. But I mean, I got better. And I
Right.
remember in I think 2012, I went to throw a party with a couple friends of mine at the same venue, and in my head, I was like, I'm going to reclaim how bad I did the last time I was here, and I think my set was all right. It wasn't recorded
Mm,
or anything, but yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah, 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 yeah. This place is no longer around, right?
Nocturne, no, I
Nocturne.
think Nocturne. I don't know when it closed, but it closed a while ago. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. Wow. Okay. So that was your first gig and you I guess when you started DJing, I mean you started getting a lot of gigs, you started getting into the scene, right? With
Yeah.
yeah, your
Mhm.
friends and everything and all
That's
that.
correct. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that, I mean, that didn't really kind of take off. Like I didn't actually start to kind of get around and people started to actually want to book me and stuff on a more regular basis until
Hmm.
2012. 2012 was kind of the point for that because I've been a bedroom DJ for so long by then.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It eventually, I did sort of started to change my sound a little bit though. And
Hmm.
it really started to kind of, um, it really started to come to full fruition when I decided to start playing the stuff that I sort of grew up on, all the 90s stuff.
Yeah.
People maybe around that time had a bit of nostalgia for it. And I had a knowledge of the music and I had a passion for it. And that's really what sort of distinguished myself. Because at the time I was playing a lot of like hardcore and that sort of stuff. And hardcore DJs in Toronto at the time were a dime a dozen. Everybody was a hardcore DJ. So it was hard to distinguish myself um, in any, in any real way.
Mm.
But then again, I fell into more of a natural groove, and yeah, and it ended up working out.
Were your parents like supportive of your DJing endeavors or
Well, my parents never came out once to any of the events that I ever was part of.
Mhm.
I did invite them, I'll be honest. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, especially when I first kind of started and I was excited.
Yeah.
I mean, my father was never the biggest fan. He thought it was kind of a waste of time. He coming from a generation where he's like, so people pay you to go up there and play other people's music, and people come and to see that, and it just didn't make sense to him. So he just kind of thought it was something silly until like until things started to get a bit more serious, and I actually started to be playing more and making money, and like, and then, yeah, but I mean, he never really was super supportive outside of just the natural support a father's going to have for a son. But musically, he never liked the music I played. He thought it was stupid that I'd be out till like 6 o'clock in the morning. And but yeah, I guess that's sort of what to say. But I mean, my parents were always, always proud of me that, I did that I did well in what I was doing, and then that I was having fun. That was another thing they were happy to see.
I remember you telling me that your dad is I mean, he comes from music, right? Or no? Am I
Yeah.
wrong?
He,
Yeah.
my dad. Oh man, he worked a big corporate job back in the day, and one day said, "You know what? It's not for me," and he gave it up, and he became a music promoter. So my dad
Mm.
started promoting blues music in Toronto, and he was responsible for a lot of. I mean, I'm not gonna try to name drop my dad here, but he died, so
Yeah.
he's not gonna listen to this, so I guess it doesn't matter. But yeah, he put
Mm.
together some of the big blues festivals in Toronto, the Distillery Blues Festival, Waterfront Blues Festival. He's a big part of the Beaches Jazz Festival. He used to book all the talent for that. He used to stage manage shows, bringing artists from all over North America. Yeah, he really he was passionate about it, probably in the same way that I'm passionate about it, just in a slightly different direction.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, that's great. I mean, it's yeah, like it's pretty crazy that he never really understood the whole DJing part of it, or the music industry, which is pretty big, right? I mean, it just keeps growing, the industry and everything like that, right? Um,
Hmm.
but you were doing gigs and everything, and I remember, you know, when was it that we first connected? I think it was like in 2016.
Yeah, how if I recall how it happened was the promotion company I used to be part of, we were throwing a big '90s party, and
Mm-hmm.
it blew up on Facebook, and you had reached
Right.
out to a particular member of the promotional company saying,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, I really want to have one of your DJs do the set," and I at that point really. I stuck my I really kind of was puffed out my chest, let's say, and
Yeah.
said, "Hey, I should be the one doing this stuff," and
Mm-hmm.
nobody disagreed. So that's when I think, yeah, when we connected, we added each other on Facebook and we're chatting, and then yeah, I did that set, and that was I think it was May of 2016, if I'm not mistaken. You could
Yeah.
probably
Yeah. Good
yeah,
memory.
yeah,
We'll
and
throw up a flyer. We'll
yeah,
throw up
oh
a
gosh,
flyer here in post
oh
editing.
yeah, oh man,
Yeah.
yeah,
You were all
but
decked out. You were wearing the Lazio. What is it? The Lazio. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Siemens or whatever. You were wearing some
yeah.
jersey.
I think I probably was. I mean, I used to wear Lazio jerseys all the time. I had a big collection at one point.
Mm.
But yeah, that's how we first connected, and so I did my Euronation debut, and then less than a month later, we threw that original Dance Night '95 party, which was a smashing success. That was a
How many people?
wonderful. Um, for a venue that held 250 people, we had, I think, 680 paying people.
Wow.
Yeah, because like people would come in, and then they would dance. Like the place was jam packed at all points. People would leave, and then other people in the line would come in, and it was, yeah, like I said, a smashing success. It was wonderful. That series of parties was just a wonderful, wonderful time across the board. And I'm so happy I could have been part of it. And, the all the other members of Electric Star Productions, that's the production company responsible. We all sincerely enjoyed that which became our flagship party.
Was that your biggest like event that you've ever done? Like the biggest gig or what?
Oh no, not I wouldn't say the biggest. I mean, I've thrown parties that were a little bit bigger in Toronto, but I mean, these were
Mm-hmm.
those like, for instance, parties with international headliners.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, but I mean, it's a very different kind of ballpark altogether. Once you have an international headliner, um, it sort of changes the dynamic of the party. If it's all locals, and I mean, if you
Mm-hmm.
can get that many people for just all local DJs, I mean, I can think of a particular party that happened not too long ago that sold out a classic venue with only local DJs. But hey,
Uh,
that really that's a really a testament to a well-thrown party. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And how busy were you in that time? I mean, obviously you did a show for us, your first show with
Yeah.
you, and you were doing that big party for Electric Star Productions. And I mean, were you getting a lot of gigs, or I mean, did you have a full-time job as well, or what?
Yeah, I was an electrician at the time. So
What you were see, we're finding things out here that I never knew. You know, like I know what you do now, but you were an electrician.
yeah. So I
Wow,
was like that.
like
It
fully
was
licensed.
well, I know I was an electrical apprentice. I should clarify, but
Okay,
for most of the time, but then when things started to get more serious with work, that's when the DJing started declined. Anyway, I'm not gonna get too ahead of myself. But no, I was working. I mean, I would wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I would go to work the entire day, come home, and then take a nap, and then that's when I would go out and start my weekend of DJing. There'd be, especially as I got had more people trying to book me. There were sometimes I would be DJing, I DJ a lot of times every weekend, but sometimes even twice a weekend. And yeah, but I mean, I was still working a full-time day job, and I was still having to keep up with, I mean, at one point I was part of three different promotion companies, all promoting
Mhm.
parties. And it was a very, very busy life. Like, it was very busy because it's like you work your 9 to 5. Well, in my case,
Yeah.
yeah, but you work your day job, and then you're working Friday and Saturday night, and then Sunday rolls around, and you have just enough time to go to church and decompress, and then start it all again. So it was a very busy, very stressful time to be as transparent as I can be.
Did you ever? I mean, obviously for me, I mean, I always look for the easy way, right? But for you were, I mean, you were always with the vinyls, right?
Mhm.
With the vinyls, like, did you lug that stuff around to gigs
Oh
or
yeah,
what?
I had two vinyl crates. I'd carry them to gigs.
Yeah.
Um, and
Was it a pain
actually,
in the ass or what? Like, I mean, I can only imagine. Oh, like the
yeah,
milk crates or what?
no, no, they were designated like hard cases specifically for
Okay.
vinyl. The
Yeah.
only time it became a real pain was, that, well, when there were circumstances when I had to like set the turntables up, like, while I was playing my set, because sometimes like the
Mhm.
turntables would be out, but they wouldn't be set up. So like I go to like I prep the first tune while the other DJ's finishing his set, and I start to play, and I'm like, okay, well, and then I'm like setting up, I'm getting the counterbalance right, and like, and then the ground cable's not in right, and so it could be a little tedious, especially going to parties where every DJ's playing on a different setup, and just having to, yeah. So it could get a little brutal, especially like I didn't drive it for parts of my
Oh,
DJing career.
wow.
So like having to take like two big vinyl crates on the subway, and they're not light, and like it's, yeah. And then, yeah, but I mean, but for me, the vinyl was something that was very important to me, because it was kind of maintaining that, I guess, more, I don't like to say traditional, but I guess the more what I probably thought was more authentic DJing. And
Yeah.
when I was in circumstances where there was no turntables available, and I obviously was not going to bring my own home, um, because that would just be way too much to carry on the subway. Two turntables and two crates,
Right.
nah, not
I was gonna
happening.
ask that. I'm like, were you bringing your equipment? Because that would be insane.
No, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
But and the big thing for me was I was never able to find digital versions of the songs that I would want to play. So
Oh,
yeah, and because I mean, and this is to this day, especially for a lot of the Euro and Italo,
yeah.
there are a lot of songs that are um, never going to be available in a digital format, just because some of these record labels went under in like 1994, and everything was on DAT tape, and those DAT tapes just got thrown in the garbage. So those studio masters are gone, and if you want to like, you can DJ with a vinyl rip, but it just sounds terrible, and there's no way of making it sound nice. So yeah, that the biggest thing with vinyl was, um yeah, just lugging it around was pretty bad. But it was when I couldn't, because I was so reliant on vinyl, when I couldn't play on vinyl, having to kind of play tunes that I wouldn't be as enthusiastic for.
Yeah. Like I noticed just now that they're converting, you know, Italian style records. They're actually converting stuff now, like still, right?
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
one of the
So,
labels. That's
yeah.
one of the labels that's been very good. I mean, I don't know exactly what they did to keep all their studio masters, but Actually,
Mm.
the sound on them is pretty good. It's not as good as the vinyl, but it still makes it so that a DJ like me can actually play. So
Right. Yeah. 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 Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned that, it was like, it was a whirlwind of busyness. You
yeah,
were constantly working. You were an electrician, an
yep.
apprentice. You were DJing on the weekends, and then you go to church. Like, are you a religious guy, or what?
Oh,
Like,
certainly.
have you always been a religious guy? Let's put it that way.
No, no. I converted to Catholicism at age 21. I was raised
Really?
sort of I was raised in a kind of a irreligious, borderline atheist household. So, but I
Mm.
came and I came to the church. Um, yeah, it was the Easter Vigil when I was 21 years old at Holy Family Church in Parkdale. So,
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Um, and I mean, obviously I mean, we're going to get to it, but that's played a big part in your life, religion
oh,
and all
it's
that.
certainly
Right.
so. Yes,
Yeah.
the absolutely
Yeah.
predominant part of my life. Yeah.
Yeah. And it still is.
No, that definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not something that really just goes away, right?
Right. 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 Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can push it away, but I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's not something that ever goes away.
Yeah. Something totally unrelated, because we were talking about your apparel,
Mhm.
because you always wear like soccer jerseys and stuff like
I
that.
used to, yeah.
You used to. You changed your style. Are you a big fan of soccer, or?
Oh, I used to be, but you know what? It's funny that we're talking about that time period. It
Yeah.
was right around the time that I got super busy with work and DJing that I
Hmm.
just stopped watching football altogether.
Oh, wow.
I used to be very, very ardently supporting, Lazio and following them, streaming the games, everything.
Hmm.
And then it degraded to, oh, I'll check the games I watch every, once in a while I'll watch a game, and but always check the scores. I always know what's going on. I always want to know the ranking. I'm always checking their lineup, and then it just fell to like, I check the scores every once in a while. And now it's, you know what? I couldn't name a single
Nothing.
player. Nothing. I couldn't name a player that plays for Lazio. I don't even know who the coach is. I don't know who the owner is. It just happens, man. It's you can only devote yourself so much to so many things. And I guess it just hasn't had played that much, that important a role in my life that it used to.
Yeah.
I mean, the World Cup's coming up and Canada's in it, so
That's
slight
right.
interest slightly peaked. I'll go watch some
You're gonna
World
be
Cup
watching
games.
that.
Oh, I mean, I guess I kind of have to because I mean, Canada hasn't been in the World Cup since what, 1988 or something.
86.
86. Okay, there you go.
86.
So even further back
Yeah.
than I thought. Yeah, I guess there was no World Cup in
Uh,
88. But anyway,
yeah.
so yeah, but yeah, soccer. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm still a Lazio fan, I guess. Like if I happen to be somewhere and a game was on and Lazio were playing, I cheer. But
Yeah.
otherwise, yeah, otherwise I'm a bad fan.
Oh God. That's all right, man. I mean, obviously you're a busy guy and everything nowadays and all that. Okay, so back to DJing, and music.
Mhm.
Um, you know, what is your most memorable moment as a DJ?
Hmm. That's a tough one, actually.
Mm,
I just for me, I don't like to think about things in the like a linear fashion. Like, oh, this is something that really jumps out, and it's gonna take a certain hierarchy over this or anything like that. I mean, the first time I was ever playing in front of a giant group of people, like I mean, in excess of 1,000, excess of 2,000, and you're in front of that many people, there is a real sense of just exhilaration. Once you break through the nervousness, because then your nerves can absolutely shipwreck you at that point. But once you're able to break through that and you just see people dancing, you see smiles on their face, and you're like, wow, I'm bringing this to this many people. It's so yeah, I would say just maybe, yeah, I would say probably my first time ever playing. big event like that, which was Otaku Baloo, which is the dance party that they have for Anime North, which is the big anime party.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, anime convention in Toronto. So, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the first time that I ever played that, there was probably I don't know the exact number, but I'm going to say it's in excess of a 1,000 people, and just that's sort of the first thing I would say, but that doesn't mean that experience was going to be more memorable or more important to me than perhaps other things. But I guess that's the best answer I can give to your question. Sorry if I sort of circumvented the question there.
Yeah, I know. Like for those Anime North events, you have to dress up. Like what? I mean, like, are you a fan of Anime North, or did you dress up for that?
That one, no. But there was a smaller sort of anime convention that they do up in Blue Mountain called YetiCon, and I've played at that quite a number of times. And there were 2 separate years that I did dress up as an anime character for it.
Really?
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I mean, I hadn't really done anything like that before. I've not. I mean, I'm into a lot of different forms of media. But it was just to be part of the experience, you know. And yeah, it was enjoyable for sure. I was
What's
just
your
there to play some music, have some fun.
What's your favorite anime? I mean, did you watch Dragon Ball Z or anything or what?
I mean, it was popular when on television and stuff when I was.
Yeah.
I mean, Dragon Ball is what I guess I remember better because by the time Dragon Ball Z was out, I wasn't really watching like television and stuff because I think I had a computer
Ah.
by then and
Yeah.
television wasn't a thing. It was just everything was on the internet.
Yeah.
But I mean, as an adult, I sort of got into just getting into a lot of different types of media,
Hmm.
and yeah, I did start to sort of check out a lot more anime and stuff like that. I mean, if I was going to say a favorite anime, it's been
One Piece, Naruto. Sorry, what?
no, I would say Legends of the Galactic Heroes. If
Oh,
the Yeah, now that is a
yeah.
wonderful piece of media. Uh, Other Armored Trooper Votums would be another one I remember really liking.
Hmm.
Um, but mind you, it's been quite some time. I'm not hip with anime. Actually, I just mentioned two animes that are from like the mid '80s, so I don't think I was ever hip with anime to begin with.
What
Um,
about what about Gundam Wing?
well, I like the original Gundam, Kido Senshi Gundam, the one from
Yeah.
1979. That one was
Hmm.
cool. But a lot of the newer ones I wasn't into. I remember Gundam Unicorn was like an OVA that came out, and that was cool. But no, for like mech anime, I was into sort of other stuff.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated with like, I mean, obviously here when we were younger, there was a lot of anime, but
Oh
that kind
yeah.
of just withered away. And then, but in the US, it's still a thing. You know, have you ever watched Toonami?
No, I'm not familiar. Is that an anime?
No, it's basically like an anime like segment on Cartoon Network. It's been
Oh,
going,
cool.
yeah, it's been going on since like '99 on Cartoon Network, and you know it's still going on till this day, which means that anime, I mean, it still lives on in the US at least
That's
with
crazy.
yeah
Okay,
with
that's
different
good. Yeah, I
yeah
mean, yeah,
yeah.
in the 90s, there was that big, well, actually, I remember this as you were answering that
Mhm.
there was the Speed Racer anime from the 70s that was on YTV at like 5 o'clock in the morning. And then there
Yeah,
was the Maya the Bee anime that was on at like
yeah.
5:30. Yeah, I used to love that. But I mean, that's, I don't want to revisit that as an adult because I'm sure it was very difficult. It would be very difficult to watch as
Yeah.
an adult because I remember it so fondly. But yeah, I remember in the 90s that yeah, there was everything. There was a company. Oh gosh, again after this interview's over, I'm going to remember. But they were just translating every anime possible, and you would have especially when the cartoon the what's it called the Teletoon. When
Oh
Teletoon came out,
yeah, love it.
they would have animate like full anime movies on every
Yeah,
weekend. And some of the
yeah,
stuff I remember being exceptionally violent. And I was
yeah,
just like, whoa, am I allowed to watch this? But and
yeah. And
also, yeah, sorry, continue.
No. The most interesting part is that all these animes, shows that we watched as kids actually came out in the 80s, like
Yeah.
or like the early 90s, and it took them a long time to translate and bring them here. Like Dragon Ball, you were talking about, that came out in the 80s, but that only hit North America in like the mid 90s, right?
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z. In Japan, it came out in the early 90s, and we only saw it in the 2000s, early 2000s. So it's pretty crazy that we're always late to the party when it comes down to
Yeah.
anime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds about right. But I think it's sort of
Yeah.
on par now because
Hmm.
there was a recent series of Godzilla movies that came out, and they were all done in like a very new style of anime. And I
Yeah.
think they came out with English with English subtitles or English dub at the same time the Japanese was released. So I think we've caught up. I mean, the digital age changes everything. You're not literally getting, I'm only imagining, boxes and boxes of tapes and then having to hire an entire team to translate and then another team to redo the voices and, oh, sorry,
Yeah.
redo the voices isn't fair, I guess, say to do the
No.
voice acting.
Do the
So
voice acting. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a different time now, but I am very out of the loop with it, for the
Mm.
most part. But again, like I said, I don't think I was ever in the loop, so it's okay.
Mm. What do you do nowadays? I mean, like obviously you said you left soccer.
Mhm.
You don't follow it. You don't follow anime. Like what's your thing now? Like what is? Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is gonna sound silly, but I actually
Yeah.
bought DJ gear again and started getting into DJ because I needed a new hobby. My hobbies were
Mm.
limited to like reading and like, yeah, yeah, reading and watching some films and stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
needed something a little bit more active, something a little that I would be a little bit more creative. So I mean, my main hobbies these days are I like watching classic films and I like DJing, listening to music, and yeah, and then reading. Reading's been a constant in my life. So amongst my hobbies, those are the most prominent. But also, I really like to cook, and I'm really interested in trying different cuisines and that sort of thing. But I would say that that there's a utility to that there isn't with music or reading or anything like that.
Yeah. And we were talking about when you came on the channel, you were on a channel a few times. You were on in 2016. I think like once a year we were doing, something, right? 2017 and 2018.
No, I more often than that. I was on every few
Was it?
months, I think. Yeah, because
Really?
yeah, I'm confident that I was doing stuff from 20 yeah, starting to May 2016 up until, I don't remember the last one, but the last one was in 2018, but I was on a
Yeah.
number of times. Yeah.
Yeah. Too many late nights, it's like, I don't even remember when we started, but,
Oh yeah.
yeah, but,
I don't even remember what I ate for breakfast, man. So
yeah, yeah. But in, 2018, I remember, here's the thing. I remember when you were on the last time,
Mhm.
and then, I remember like, I don't know, you just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. We never reconnected again. And I remember looking at your Facebook, and you weren't really doing any more events. You had, you're always making posts very like, I don't know how to explain it. Like you're making posts in Latin, like,
Yeah. Sounds like me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of, I remember at one point you changed your profile picture to some picture from like the the age of Christ, like there
Oh
was like
yes.
some kind of
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah,
I changed my profile picture to an icon of Saint Athanasius the Great, and that was actually
wow,
very shortly before I just completely removed myself from social media. So
yeah,
that would have been the summer of 2018 when I woke up one day and I deleted Facebook, Instagram, and I
mm.
completely dropped off the face of the earth.
What was going through your mind when obviously some people take a break. They're like, oh,
Mhm.
I hate social media. It's too much. It's too fake or whatever. But
Mhm.
what was going on through your head behind deleting all that and just falling off the face of the earth?
Well, it was the reason why I started to DJ a lot less was my mom was terminally ill, and I was
Hmm.
I was having to have a more active role in her care, and it got to a point where um I went away for like a bachelor party weekend, and I came back on the Sunday, and my brother had been working the weekend, and my dad was just taking care of her on his own. He was like, "Hey, listen, it was very difficult without you here." Like I had already moved back to my parents' house for that purpose, and then
Hmm.
I had to sort of make the decision. I said, "Well, you know what? I can continue to be a DJ. I can continue to come home at 5 o'clock in the morning, or I can step up and be a man and take care of my mother the same way she
Hmm.
took care of me." And not
Right.
just that. It's not. I don't want to see like, oh, I only did it for that reason. Obviously, there are innumerable
No,
reasons why someone takes care of their mother. But
you loved her. I mean,
yeah,
she's your mom.
of
She gave
course I
you
love my
life. Yeah.
mother. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Look at uh, so. And I just made that decision, and I did not have a single regret. I didn't make a final post. I didn't do anything. I said, okay, forget it. I deleted it all. I thought everybody who is going to want to contact me has my phone number or has my email, and yeah, and I stopped. I changed I canceled my premium subscription on not or premium account on SoundCloud. I was like, I'm done. That's it. I'm not a DJ anymore. I'm gonna focus on taking care of my family, and I'm gonna focus on my spiritual life, and that's what I did in the summer, starting summer of 2018.
If you don't mind me asking, what was your mom, ill with?
Oh, my mom had Parkinson's. She was
Parkinson's.
diagnosed, diagnosed in 2013.
Hmm.
And the symptoms took a little while to onset, to where they got, but once the onset really came to fruition, I guess you could say, that it her state declined very quickly. So and then so within the last, so when I left social media, she lived for about another year and a half, and it was just a very difficult time for myself, for my father, and for my brother, and then for all of our close friends, and we don't really have a lot of other family. So, but yeah, it was a rough time. I'll say that.
Was she taking medications, or because I know, like, the only instance I know of Parkinson's is Michael J. Fox, and
Mm.
he's Canadian, but he takes all this medication and stuff like that. Was she on that, or?
Well, now Parkinson's, and I want to just clarify. I have no medical authority whatsoever. I'm really just gonna. I'm
Hey,
just.
but it's just a free for all here.
Yeah,
We're
I'm
just
just.
talking.
Yeah, I'm gonna sort of
Yeah.
just do my best to regurgitate what I've understood. But Parkinson's
Yeah.
isn't like, it isn't just a single thing. It's more of like an umbrella term for a lot of, like, there's different types of Parkinson's. Um,
Mhm.
and so I'm not sure what Michael J. Fox has. I mean, I know that had lived a long life since his diagnosis and everything, and and God bless him and all the power to him. My mom's case was a little different. She was taking a lot of medications. It was a very they had multiple different types of medication, multiple times a day. I had all the alarms set in my phone for it. We had all the different pills put into little like pill boxes, so we knew which pills to take at which time, and that in its that in itself was difficult enough. But yeah, so lots of medication, and there were a lot of um, well, it's not just a lot of medication, but yeah, just a lot of different types of medication, and on very different and but particular schedules, if that makes any sense.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, no, of course. And you got rid of social media. You gave up DJing, actually, right?
Yep.
For that. And what was? I mean, were you still working, or did you just give up your job too, or what?
Well, I switched, sort of changed the direction of my career, because Well, for a few reasons, but
Hmm.
in after I quit social media, I was like, okay, I need to get a job that is going to be paying me benefits, that's going to give me paid time off. Like, I need to really, like, I need to start making some serious decisions. So that's when I started. So I took on a sales role with the company that I'm still well, that I'm working for again now. But
Hmm.
I did drastically change many things in my life at that time. It wasn't just deleting social media. There was a complete shift in my focus and my direction in life.
And this was in 2018.
Hmm.
And I mean, obviously, you were still working at the sales position. You were done DJing. Um, did that affect you at all to not be around music anymore? Like, did you miss it at any point? Like, obviously, you had to care for your mom, but were you at any point like, oh shit, like, did I make the right decision?
Uh, I got a lot of serious like fear of missing out when people talk about going to these parties and stuff and thinking,
I'm sure
oh
you got a lot of
man, yeah,
messages too. Davide, do you want a
yeah,
gig? Yeah, all
yeah.
that.
I did get a lot of that. So there were times when it got to me because it was like I didn't have that little thing that I liked doing,
Yeah.
and I mean, it actually was at the point where I actually didn't even want to have my turntables in front of me anymore. It was
Mm.
strangely enough, and I mean, call this serendipitous or whatever you'd like. There was a flood that and where I was what I had taken on as my bedroom since I moved back was very affected by it. So I had to put all of my records and my turntables. I had to put everything away, and everything was away. So I didn't even have to think about anything like that anymore. My records were all in a separate room on a shelf, um, and uh, and yeah, so I it was no longer even a part of my life. But there were times like when I went to go sell my vinyl collection that I had to take my turntables. I had to listen to some of these records to test the condition. Um,
Right.
and I did. And then I would and then that kind of feeling like, oh man, I missed out, kind of came
Hmm.
back. But for the most part, knowing that I was doing the right thing was more important than doing what I wanted.
Right. That's that's the power of the love for your mom, for your mother, right?
Yeah, no,
That's
absolutely so. I mean
yeah.
that's part of maybe I was just that kid that never really grew up until right then. But
No,
yeah,
no,
they
it's
just
really not about growing up. I mean, it's once I mean, let's dive deep into that because you started, taking care of your mom in 2018. And I know you, we've talked quite a bit. You've told me your story. So, how long did she have this illness for? Like, yeah.
yeah, so diagnosed. Well, it's complicated because she was showing symptoms before her official diagnosis. But like I said, so let's say official. I think I said 2012 before, and I immediately I was like, was it 2012, 2013?
Hmm.
Anyway, irrelevant. But so she had it for a while, but she's showing symptoms before. And yeah, so we there was a lot of use of medication. My mom had the three separate brain surgeries.
Okay.
So like I mean, it was there was a lot into it, and it became the central point of a lot of our lives. So taking care of her was something that I moved back home to do to help out,
Hmm.
and but then yeah. So but even from the time that you and I first met, like there was still a lot more work. Like she was really I was losing her independence by about 2016 or so, but later in 2016. Maybe not. Actually, no. As immediately saying that, no, she had already lost her independence. We couldn't leave her on her own by 2016.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Um, you yeah, like I remember you telling me that eventually, she passed away, unfortunately. When was this?
Oh, that was January the 19th of 2020.
2020.
Yeah.
Wow. And this whole time you were taking care of her.
Well, it wasn't just me, and I do not want to I do
Yeah.
not want to make it sound like that. Like it was my father, my brother, and I. We were working,
Yeah. Yeah.
worked,
Team
we
effort.
worked together. It was the whole family came together. Yeah,
Hmm.
starting in like, yeah, 2012 or so. It was
Hmm.
a consolidated effort. But yeah, so it was a big part. It was a big part of my life. Um,
Hmm.
even yeah, even before it took over everything else. So I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, your family's always been very important to me. We never had a big family. Like, I knew a lot of people. Like, I never had any cousins. Um, like my grandparents passed away when I was younger, so it was just us. So it was us as a unit, and we stuck together.
Okay. So I remember, we met a few years ago in person, actually, which is funny
Yeah.
because you were always on the broadcast, on the Euronation broadcast, and we actually only met like 3 years ago, almost, or two
Like,
years.
the time that we met outside of music, like when we met and
Yeah,
actually like sat and like talked to each other, and it wasn't just
yeah,
all business. Yeah, that
yeah.
was I think, yeah, it was right when, I think it was right before they locked all the restaurants down, because we didn't have to go wear masks or anything. So it was the beginning of 2020.
Right, right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I remember meeting you at that point, and it was a completely different Davide that I had, that I had met before, that I had known
Hmm.
before, right? And I remember you telling me that, unfortunately your mom passed away, and you were telling me that you had turned to religion, and how, you said that was it when you were 21 that you became a Catholic,
That's
and
correct. Yes.
yeah, and so how did your mom's illness pivot you more towards religion? Like, did that play a part in any way?
It's difficult for me to say that. I mean, it's because actually, humorously enough, when I first became a Catholic, I remember the priest that really helped me with my catechism and everything. I was like, so, well, then you're going to be Catholic. What's the next step? I'm like, well, I'm going to become a monk. And he's like,
So wait a second. Wait a second. Were
uh,
you baptized at that point, or did you get
ba-
baptized late in life?
yeah, I was baptized and confirmed
At
through the
21.
at 21. Uh,
Wow,
uh,
it's insane.
so he's like, yeah, you're a
Mhm.
Catholic now, and I was like, oh, I want to become a monk, and he's like, maybe we should, let's wait to see how good you are in the faith for the next couple of years. But so I always
Mhm.
kind of had it in the back of my mind, and then I guess I wouldn't say necessarily my mom's illness pivoted me to it. It's just when I started to think about my future and to put things into a greater perspective. I thought, well, what do I feel called to? And so, the two things, though happening simultaneously. I think that, my desire for a monastic life was something that maybe I'd sort of put to the back burner, or in some cases maybe even cast aside for a little while. But it started to come back, and actually, it started to come back even before I disappeared from social media. It started, to be very honest with you, I started talking to the Carmelite monastery a couple of months after I did my first show on Euronation. So it just became more of a focus because I had less distraction. So it was taking care of my mom, and then it was discerning my vocation. Um, I mean, certainly it could. I'm sure someone who has more authority than me could say that by how much influence my mom actually being ill had on that, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't want to pretend that I have perspective that I don't. But no,
Yeah.
it was always something sort of there, and I just had the opportunity to be more active in my church, for instance. Like, I mean, I wasn't out DJing until 5 o'clock in the morning, so I could actually go to the morning mass. I didn't have to go to the afternoon mass. Um,
Mhm.
and started to getting closer with people there. Started to um, not distance myself from anybody necessarily, because I try not to do that, but I just, we're in living different lives, so I sort of fell away from some of the friends I had and made new ones. And yeah, just it was a sort of gradual change that, I mean, and of course, when you having saw me after having seen me before, this gradual change that I had gone through, which was a big
Yeah.
natural progression, probably looked probably looked a little extreme to you, to be
It was very
honest.
drastic. It was very drastic. But before we get into that, I actually,
Mhm.
I actually do have a few questions because,
Yeah, go for it.
you're telling me now that you started thinking about becoming a monk back in
Mhm.
2016, right? But
Mhm.
and then you became Catholic at 21. Like, how did this all unfold? Because how did you even, how did it even, how did that feeling come inside of you to even become a Catholic? How did the feeling come inside of
Oh
you
my.
to become a monk? Like, how does that happen? Like, because it's very drastic, especially if you grew up in a household where you weren't Catholic and then you just become a Catholic. It doesn't connect. So what's the story there? What happened?
Oh, well, Maurizio, I don't know. I don't know if I don't know how much time we have here, but
Well, you
that's a
can
difficult question to answer. But
you can
I
summarize it.
summarize it. I've always been into philosophy, been reading philosophy since I was a
Hmm.
teenager. Very into Platonic philosophy, and
Yeah.
reading a lot of that sort of using the philosophical school of the Sophia Perennis as a springboard into a better understanding of the necessity of Platonic philosophy. The necessity that Platonic philosophy has on a religious tradition. So I kind of put to the forefront. And I was reading a lot of Neoplatonists, and I decided to read Saint Dionysius the Areopagite, for those avid readers of
Hmm.
of uh, early church fathers, particularly in his case, he was probably the strongest writer in the Neoplatonic tradition, who was an Orthodox Christian. And it was upon reading that I kind of gave my head a shake, and I said, "Hey, I'm like the first person in my family's line for like, I don't know, 1,500 or so years that hasn't been Catholic, and I genuinely do feel this drawing,
Hmm.
this draw to
Hmm.
things that supersede anything I can understand. There is something substantially greater than me, and I want to be drawn to it. I want to know more of it. So I remember
Yeah.
we all read Dante in high school, and we all thought we were cool. But I reread Dante from like a Neoplatonic perspective, and understood a lot of the biblical symbolism in it, because I was reading. I had a nice little um, companion reader for it, and then I started like, well, why don't I just start reading into the Bible? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to understand it. Maybe I should read some perspectives of church fathers, because they know their stuff. And I know I'm just really, this is like, this could be like a, in itself a multiple hour answer, but so then
Yeah.
and then I was one day I was getting my hair cut, and the guy who was cutting my hair is this Polish guy. And he's like, "Oh, I saw your name, Davide. You're Italian." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, are you a good Catholic?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Why not?" I'm like,
Wow.
I'm not baptized." He's like, "What? You're not baptized?" And he's like, "Really?" And he's like, "You should get baptized." I'm like, "Actually, I'm genuinely interested in it. Do you know who you could introduce me to?" And he's like, I know a priest that you can talk to for sure." I'm like, "Well, I want a priest who knows something about the traditional Latin Mass." And he was like, "I got just the guy for you." And then within a couple of weeks, I was in touch with a priest at Holy Family Church. And after quite a number of conversations with him, he said, "Well, you know what? I think you would be a wonderful candidate for the adult catechism program." And I went through the whole catechism program, and then I think it was more than a year later, because I think I just missed Easter when him and I started to talk, because catechumens are taken into the church on the Easter Vigil.
Right.
I at least in the Roman tradition. So
Yeah.
yeah, and then I became Catholic. So I think I probably glossed over a lot of the more theological nuance. purposely, just because I don't know how interested people would be in that. But so to put in practical terms, if maybe we could have some outtakes where I go into a long, boring detail about this, and everyone's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, what is this guy even talking about?" But so that's sort of where
Right.
I found myself. So
Yeah, no, I mean it's pretty interesting because even the stuff that I used to read on social media that you used to
excuse me.
post back then was definitely like I really don't know how to explain it. Like it was stuff that I didn't even understand. Like you were talking about a lot of philosophical, like you were making posts you were making posts in Latin, you know, like the Latin language, you know, let's put it that way. Like I didn't even understand what you were saying, you know, but I mean, it's interesting that you've always had this interest in you know in you know in the past and in history and in Catholicism and Christianity. I really don't even know how to explain it. I mean, your brain must be exploding with all this information, right? And
Oh no,
yeah.
no, no! I know practically nothing. Like I know. No, no, no.
This
I'm
isn't a
not.
time to be. This isn't a time to be. You know, to be humble, right? We gotta. You know, you obviously. You know, the path that you're on, the path that things have led you on. Like it's not just a coincidence. You know, obviously I don't know, you've been genuinely interested in this stuff, right? And
Oh, certainly
yeah,
so. Yeah, yeah. And so
yeah,
without music, you're able to. I'm not
yeah.
without music, you're able to focus on
Mhm.
things that you enjoy more. But in it just in that like the sort of what we talked about, having that it's a sincerely different approach. You're able to
Right.
appreciate a lot of the subtleties that of the greater things in your life, and then those subtleties can manifest themselves in many different ways. And so that's just sort of how it came to me. And not that, and again, like I'm not an authority on any subject whatsoever, but that's at least how I understand it.
So, you know, when you know, obviously you're talking about getting a haircut, you know,
Mhm.
and the barber just, you know, telling you about you know, baptism and all that. But what about actually becoming a monk? How was that born within you? Like where the heck did that come from?
Oh, to say that it would come internally, I think would be disenfranchising it completely, because a vocation is a calling, and a calling has to have uh, sort of two sides to it. So one has to
Yeah.
call and one has to be called. So I'm not going to try to attribute anything internally to wanting to be a monk. I mean, I think that to be called to a spiritual life is something that we're all called to, and just it's
Mm-hmm.
how we're going to interpret that call. So there was a different time when you would you every the an average a man would aim for being a monk first, and if that didn't work out, oh well, then you can be a priest. Oh well, if that and if,
Mm-hmm.
that, if that's not what your calling is, then you look into being a deacon, or a part of one of the lay orders. And then the bottom of that is the natural vocations, so just being a biological father, but still
Mm-hmm.
a pious Christian. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's sort of where it came from, and it was something that I thought about a long time ago. Even before becoming Catholic, I wanted to be a monk. Just once I was actually reading into things, and I'm not reading into things, I would say, but coming to a better understanding of things. But then it wasn't about 2016 when I guess I thought, well, it's going to be now or never, because I remember reading, because I just decided to Google it one day, and I noticed that most orders do not accept people over a certain age. And so that's when I said, oh, well, and so I started reaching out, and I started speaking with the vocational director at the Carmelite Monastery that I ended up entering back. So that was 2016. It would have been this, if I'm not mistaken, probably the summer. I think it was August of 2016. Yeah, it would have been August of 2016.
Did your parents support this? Did you even tell them about anything? I mean,
Not
you know, did
initial,
you
not initially,
no.
no. Not initially. I didn't
Okay.
tell anything. But no, my mother, by the time I decided, was in no mental state to be, like, my mother had severe dementia by then. So it was
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she understood when I told her. To the back, maybe it's wishful thinking, but I believe she did. My father was never a fan. He didn't like it one bit, and he, yeah, even to the day I left, he didn't like it. So and
Is
he would,
he
yeah, I'd call him on the phone, like, because we got one phone call a month, give him a call, and he'd be
right,
like,
right.
"Oh, when are you coming home?" He didn't like me there at all. He didn't. He didn't want me there.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting because I remember when I saw you, I believe when was it that I saw you?
Like, but
Was it
when we
2020 or 2021?
no, it was 2020 because I 2021 I was in the monastery.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
2020, I remember meeting up with you. Okay, and no joke, I was like, what, what happened? Because we went to go have a burger, right? And I remember you telling me that obviously, there were certain days that you couldn't eat meat, and then I remember, meeting up with you. You weren't wearing your jerseys. You were wearing all black. You were wearing like a black dress shirt, black dress pants. This was like a Wednesday, and then dress shoes and everything. And I remember sitting down with you, and like I knew you were thinking of doing this, but the first thing I asked you, I remember, is why not a priest? And I guess you already answered that because it didn't come from within. Your calling was not to become a priest, but have you ever thought of that? Or
I did actually.
yeah.
I discerned because generally since the Second Council of the Vatican, which, I mean, I'm not getting into the inside baseball on the Second Council of the Vatican. Those who of your listeners who understand the Second Council of the Vatican, great. I don't think it's a good time to talk about it. We could perhaps,
Yeah.
maybe someone could send me an email if they want to talk about that further. But men's monastic orders completely fell apart after. So that was in the mid 1960s. So priesthood was sort of the sole vocation that one would really be looking into. So just by natural extent, it's something that I did look into specifically prior, because a lot of people were saying, well, a good role in the church would always be in the priesthood. But so I did sort of discern out of that, and I didn't really have to drive for it necessarily. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I remember when we met up, you were telling me that I think we were like a few months out, maybe like 3 months out from when you were going to leave, and immediately I said, I'm like, look, Davide, we got to get you back on. Yeah. We gotta get you back on. We gotta capitalize on the final moments of Davide Ferrara before he actually discerns into the monastery, and I remember, obviously we set up a date for the set that you were gonna do and everything, 3 hours.
Yeah.
But I remember that this was gonna be it, because why don't you tell us what the meaning is of actually going to a monastery? Maybe a lot of people aren't Catholics. They don't really know what it undertakes, that, you actually going there. What do you really have to give up?
Well, there are different monastic orders, and each of them are going to have different things. So there are, I guess, the minor differences, but the general idea is that you are living a life of sacrifice. You're sacrificing everything of your own for the betterment of everyone around you. So you give up your name, you give up your hobbies, you give up your particular interests, all of the things that kind of are going to distinguish you as an individual. You give up. You're still going to retain your God-given gifts and everything, but if you're into music, well, you're not into music anymore. You're into painting or culinary arts. Those aren't going to be a part of your life anymore. And so, I mean, that's why, in at least in the apostolic churches, so the Catholic churches, and then the Orthodox churches, part of the monastic tradition is to give up your name and take on a new spiritual name, because it is sort of like it is in itself a continuance of a conversion, because I might have talked about earlier by conversion, but a conversion is not a completed act. It's an ongoing act. So as part of your continued conversion, you will take on a spiritual title. So entering a monastery, some monastic orders are a little less cloistered than others. Cloistered meaning you are secluded from the general populace around you. The Carmelite order especially the Discalced, traditional Discalced Carmelites are they are quite secluded. So you are going to be cutting off connections with friends, your family. You're going to be able to write a few letters a year, perhaps, but you're not going to have any general interaction with people. So, and outside of course, your brothers and the fathers in the monastery, but there are orders where you don't even really have that. I mean, if you wanted to look into the Carthusian order, for instance, they would have that is a life of solitude that goes beyond the community focus of an order like the Carmelites, for instance. So I hope I didn't answer that too verbose.
Honestly, man, honestly, anything goes. Anything goes.
Okay, anything
But,
goes. Yeah.
and anything goes. But yeah. So, what was your name?
Brother Dionysus of the Dormition of the Most Holy Theotokos.
Wow, that's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
formal titles. Formal titles are a big thing. So.
Yeah. You were leaving, obviously your family, because I remember when I was meeting up with you, you were leaving your family behind and you were going to go become a monk. And really, like they're like you said, you have to give up your worldly possessions, but at the same time, your DJing that you became passionate about for so many years. How did you feel at that point? Like, did you feel that you were going to miss that, or were you just prepared to like let that all go?
I was prepared to let it all go at that point. I'm. It didn't. It was just something of the past, something I enjoyed, but there was more important things in the future. Sort of I guess, in a nutshell, how I would describe how I was feeling about it.
Yeah, and I remember when we met when we met up and everything. You told me that you were selling your car, that you were you were quitting your job. You were actually like selling all your DJ equipment and your vinyls and everything. I mean, nothing
actually,
fazed you, eh? Nothing fazed you about that, eh?
Believe it or not, the last set I did.
Yeah.
I didn't even own DJ gear at the time when I came in and did
Right.
that set, that final
Yeah.
set. I hadn't owned DJ gear in months.
Right.
So yeah, I'd sold off all my DJ gear, all my production gear. I mean, now it's not really in the purview of Euro Nation, the music I used to produce, but like, but yeah, I sold off everything. I mean, I sold off even, I donated my clothing. Well, not all of my clothing, but I donated stuff like that I wasn't gonna wear again. And yeah, I was just trying to live a much more simple life prior to entering. And yeah, but yeah, it's sort of, if you're gonna do it, you have to go all the way. I mean, it doesn't make sense. You can't maintain a job in good standing if they know you are going to be leaving for a life that goes beyond I guess a workplace vocation versus a spiritual. So yeah, it's an all or nothing thing, realistically.
What was like that final set like, because I know that you did you did a set for us and we said goodbye to you. I mean, we had a whole theme, with the angels on the side and everything. But what was that experience like, doing that final set, emotionally and everything?
It was wonderful. It was a wonderful set. Yeah. I played a lot of fun music. I had a really good time. It was lovely because we both had mics, so we could actually talk to each other. Exactly. And like that, we was a lot more active. And I just remember seeing the feed on, I think it was YouTube, when I announced that I was going to the Carmelite Monastery, and just seeing these people just saying God bless, all the best, and I was like, oh wow,
Hmm.
because that's not the response I got from even people who were very close to me, who I really cared about. Like, a lot of people
Right.
weren't happy about that, so it was a very excuse me, a very cathartic experience. It was wonderful. It was, and we were doing the on the feast of Saint Peter in Chains. So it was like, right before the Dormition fast, and it all really just came together, and it all really meant a lot. And again, like, I thank you for having me do
Hmm.
that set. I mean, if it wasn't for you dragging me kicking and screaming, I
Oh
would have
yeah, we
never done that. Never done
we
that.
gotta we, we gotta tell the people what, like, how that came about. I remember, yeah. So basically for everybody watching, this guy was off the grid, like completely off the grid. Like, I couldn't find him, no social media. I asked like previous people that worked with him as friends, no information, right? So all I know, I don't remember how I got your address. Somebody gave me your address, and I decided to send a letter, right?
I,
It was
oh,
it was
uh,
it was
I think it was
basically a calling.
it was a little more than that, actually.
Yeah.
You got my address from a particular Australian listener, Paul Bryson,
That's
who
right, Paul,
we
which is
we
weird. Yeah,
yeah,
there we go.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, because we traded some things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he had my address, and then you didn't mail the letter, you hand delivered the letter
There we go.
to
Yes.
to and at the time to my dad's house. And
Yeah.
I wasn't in, oh no, I was working at the time, because my the territory I covered was in BC, so I would work till 8 p.m. And yeah, and I get this letter, and I'm like, Jesus. And I took pictures of it, and everything. I was like, it's like, and I mean, I wish I had it in front of me right now so I could read it, but it was like, nobody knows where you are, but the people want you. And there's a big Euro Nation logo. It's like,
That's right.
call me at this number. And I was like,
It
okay,
was
well,
like, yeah, it was like the bat
I'm
signal
exactly. And
on
I
paper.
remember I had a big stack of records I had to go mail. So I'm like, I got to get these out tonight before the post office closes at 9. So I rushed out, and then I called you, and we talked. And that's what sort of put you like, yeah, what's been going on? I gave you the details, and you're like, are you coming back? And I'm like, no, I'm actually going away forever. And you're like,
Yeah,
oh. And then I think we met up on St. Clair like the next week, and got
we
got
did.
some got
Yeah,
some dinner. Yeah. Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it was
And
crazy because I was so off the grid. No, I didn't talk to anybody from the DJ scene. Anybody. Nobody talked to me. Like, I just I
mm,
didn't we fell out of contact, and then out of nowhere, I just get this letter. Oh my word. It was wonderful. I loved it. It made me, because, and you can probably speak to this better than I could, but you told me people were asking about me, which
yeah,
surprises
for
me that
years.
some guy that, I just played a couple of sets on the radio, and people are actually like, they
Hmm.
care. I'm like, that was surprising enough. But yeah, and then we talked, and it took a lot. You gave it a lot, because
Yeah,
I was a unmovable object. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not playing a DJ set. Like, that's not
yeah,
happening. And
yeah.
then, but yeah, I don't know what you did, but something you did, it broke
Uh,
that facade, and I was like, yeah, let's do it.
I mean, I was just the messenger, I
Yeah.
mean, the people
Yeah.
are who spoke. The people are who called you back, right? And I had to get you back on, and I remember that I was actually there the last night that before you left. I mean, you were leaving the next morning,
Yep.
and we met up at a Tim Hortons,
Yes, we
and
did. Yeah, in the
we met up
parking
at a Tim
lot,
Hortons in the parking lot,
because we
and
couldn't sit inside because of COVID.
because of, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, I'm like, oh, how is this possible? This guy is literally like leaving forever. He's wearing like basically a suit. Like the night before, and um Yeah, I just couldn't believe it, and I couldn't believe it, and I remember when you left, you know, just the sense of wondering about you always came to me over the next months, maybe even a year. I was like, shoot, I wonder how this guy's doing. I wonder what he's up to. You know, maybe we should send him a letter. You know, but you know, who knows how delayed it's gonna be once he gets it and the replies and everything. Maybe he's too busy. Maybe he won't even get it. You know, and um, and then why don't you tell us what it was like going there, like your journey, finally getting there and all that. And, what was your experience like at the monastery? Yeah, you were in Wyoming, right?
Yes, that's correct. I was in
Yeah,
Northwest Wyoming, right there,
Wyoming.
tucked
Yeah.
away in the Rocky Mountains.
Wow.
Um, well, it was something because, um, yeah, I went to the airport the next morning with my longtime friend. We've been friends since we were 8 years old, so
Yeah.
practically, well, for practically our entire lives. And I went with him. His name's Max. Also, my father and my brother, and they drove me to the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was yeah. I had every single possession of mine, that like every worldly possession that I was going to bring to the monastery, because there's a very short list of what we could bring. I had the clothes on my back, and I had a bag with a prayer rope, a Bible, and then and some changes of socks and underclothing and stuff like that. And yeah, it was. And I just was at the airport, just there going through. It was right when COVID was starting to go heavy, or I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say, but yeah, it was. And then the whole trip, and then finally, because I canceled my cell phone. My cell phone plan was going till the day after I entered. I called my dad when I landed in the Cody, Wyoming airport to say, "Hey, pops, I made it this far," and he was okay. Well, when I get to talk to you again, and I was like, "Ah." And then entering the monastery, it was
Shit.
yeah. And then entering the monastery, yeah, I entered. Um, for the first few weeks, you're not allowed to stay with brothers or anything. So I was kind of staying in like a guest house outside of the monastery, and I would kind of come in for liturgy in the morning, and then I wasn't allowed to kind of be part of everything just yet, because at that point you're called an observer. That lasted for a few weeks, and then once your observance period is done, then you're allowed to actually come into the monastery, but you're still not a postulant. So you're still. So I actually got to sleep inside the monastery, inside the wall, within the walls, and eventually I did get clothed. So that's when you're given your postulancy. So they you will have they will give you a habit. It's a designated habit for a postulant. Oh, let me just clarify something, just because now I feel like this is really inside baseball. So the stages of monasticism is a postulancy is usually um, about a year or so. After that, you enter what's called the novitiate. Novitiate is 2 to 3 years, depending on the order. And then at that point, you take what are called your temporary vows, and then you become a full-fledged monk. And that's when you will be completely taken into the community as a brother, and that's when you're going to determine if you're going to be a choir monk like a priest, or if you're going to be a lay brother, so a non-clerical monk. And then after
Mhm.
usually 7 or 10 years, depending on the order, again, you'll take your final vows, and at that point you're there for life. So
Mhm.
so I entered the postulancy, and then well, I don't want to get into too much necessarily about my progression in the monastery, because I don't think that's as poignant. But the my life in the monastery going in there, I thought my prayer life was pretty good.
Mhm.
Turns out, I wasn't even in preschool yet. Like I knew nothing. It was a
Mhm.
big eye-opening experience to really live a life of solitude and piety. And I learned, so you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about the world, just from the circumstance, just from the environment itself. Um, not listening to media, not knowing what's going on in the world, not having communication, just taking the time to enjoy, to enjoy and fully embrace a life of solitude and piety. It's like nothing else. And so the day-to-day life was, you had two duties. Your duties were prayer and hard work. So we would sing the canonical offices. And so there's a lot of sung prayer. And then we also had to do 2 hours of mental prayer or meditation. It might be a term people are more familiar with. And then the rest of the day was spent in labor. So I was, because of my construction background and, my physical abilities, I was working as a stonemason. So, but yeah, you'd work all day. You'd stop to eat. Aside, you'd only stop work to eat or pray. And it was a simple life and a beautiful life, for sure. And my experience there is something I'm never going to forget, and it's also an experience that I only wish I would have had earlier on in life, so I could be the person I am now earlier on, I guess. But then that just might be me being a bit silly, because obviously everything happened the way it did because I was supposed to. So.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I don't know if I don't know if I answered your question very well. I think I kind of went off on a tangent.
No, you've definitely answered it. But what about your family? I mean, your dad, your brother, maybe some of your friends. How often did you think about them? How often did you communicate with them, given the fact that you were so restricted with what you could do there?
So phone calls were limited to, when you first enter, you're allowed to call once a week. And then that goes from once a week to once every 2 weeks. That's once a month. And then it's once every 6 months. And then you get to call for Christmas and Easter. So I would, every time I talked to my dad, it would, like I said before, oh, when are you coming home? And when I had the opportunity to talk to my brother too, it was because we had all of our calls could only be on the one day we did work, which was Sunday. So my brother was always working Sundays. So, but it was tough. Within the first year of me entering on, I got to call my dad on Christmas, and I found out that my brother had a medical emergency on Christmas Day. And my dad was freaking out, and I was freaking out. I wanted to leave immediately to go help my brother, but I didn't. And I don't regret that decision or anything like that, but it was tough. Having my family on the other side not wanting me to be there, and just getting letters. I did get letters from some close friends, and just expressing how much they missed me and everything. And I wrote everybody back. The thing is, I wrote everybody back that I was allowed to. I did get some letters from people that were not necessarily appropriate letters, so I wasn't
really.
There's certain letters I wasn't even given permission to read, let alone want to. I don't know.
They would read everything beforehand.
Oh yeah, no. Any mail that came in, any mail that went out, they read. My spiritual director, not they, but my spiritual director specifically. That's part of. Yeah, he does. That's part of your vocational formation, or spiritual formation in the monastery. Did
they give you any insight as to what these letters said, or just it's not appropriate?
I remember. I remember my spiritual director coming to me and pulling me aside and saying, "Who is this person?" and gave a full name. And I was like, I'm like, that's an ex-girlfriend of mine. And he's like, okay.
Oh,
and
no.
That's all he said. So,
oh no.
So that's, and I'm like, the only way he would have that person's full name is if they sent a letter. So obviously they had sent a letter. Not obviously, I'm sorry. My guess is they sent a letter, and I just didn't have the opportunity to read it because I don't know what the content was, but it was deemed inappropriate for me to read. So I didn't. But I did have wonderful letters from a lot of really loving people. And yeah, it was really it was nice to be able to read letters, and it was even nicer to respond to them. It was very tough. We didn't have a lot of time to write letters, so it was like on Sundays we had a little bit of free time, where,
Mm.
but I mean, you're just so exhausted from the week that a lot of time you just want to take a nap. But I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
respond. So yeah. So, but it was reading those letters reinforced why I was there, because you are to be crucified like Christ and not see the fruits of your labor. That's the point.
Mm.
It's not like a selfish thing where you see an immediate fruit. It's to live the life of sacrifice for the
Mm.
betterment of everyone else in the world. And not
Mm.
seeing the fruits of the labor is what makes it beautiful. So that's sort of how I would best perspect it. And probably after this interview's over, I'm gonna say how man, I should have said that, or I should have said something else. But I hope that made sense.
You basically missed the whole pandemic, all of COVID, because I mean, you were isolated. You didn't know what was going on in the world.
Mhm.
And all that. And, it's very interesting that you mentioned that an ex-girlfriend sent you a letter that you couldn't read. Um, obviously I've never experienced what you've experienced. A lot of people, in fact, most people that are watching this have not experienced that. Um, did you ever have any thoughts where you're like, my ex-girlfriend, sent me a letter. Like I kind of miss, I miss relationships. I miss, I miss women, this and that, you know what I mean? Right. Yeah.
Not really.
Not really.
Honestly, that
Yeah.
that 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 wasn't really a motivator for me.
Hmm.
It had been so long
Yeah.
since I'd been in a relationship with anybody, like
Yeah.
years and years. Like I think, yeah, yeah, it's 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
since I'd been in a relationship with someone. But when I did enter, if not more, so it had been a long time. So now, if there were factors that were going to pull me out of the monastery, romantic
Hmm.
relationships were certainly not at the forefront.
Hmm.
Maybe secondarily, I don't know. It's hard for me to put
Hmm.
myself in the exact mindset, but at the time, it's not something I thought a lot about.
Right. 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 And how long were you in the monastery?
Just over a year.
Over a year.
Well, I
And
mean,
this whole.
no, so it's complicated because there was a time of kind of coming out, going back, and but let's just say it was over a year.
Okay. So this whole time you were following a schedule, you were working during the day, you were
Hmm.
praying, did you ever, were you ever thinking to yourself that, maybe this wasn't what it turned out to be, or did you ever have any doubts while you were there, or were you just, content?
I mean, if you, I certainly, I had my doubts about things. There were
Did
things
you miss
there.
music? Did you miss music? That's another one.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
my word, I did.
Yeah.
There were times when sometimes you're doing very monotonous sort of
Yeah.
tasks. And when you're doing the monotonous tasks, your mind can go wild. And I remember one time to try to like pass the time because I think I was really tired and really struggling
Hmm.
that day. And I was just thinking, I'm like thinking about these sets that I used to play. And I'm like, what songs did I play? And I was trying to remember the songs in like order that I played them. And I was like, yeah. So I thought about music a lot. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's true. It's not something that ever leaves you when
Hmm.
you're very interested in something for years. Like, and do you know what's very strange is I would get the most random songs stuck in my head, like songs that I hadn't listened to since I was a teenager would just randomly get stuck in my head. Like but it was very strange. It's the way that maybe your mind kind of pieces things together. Like I
Right.
couldn't, yeah, I couldn't, I couldn't like mentally recall the full songs of these songs that I had listened to for the last 5 years, but some song that I thought was absolutely phenomenal when I was like 17 years old,
Mhm.
It was like it was as though I pressed play on the CD or the tape or the record, and it just played right back. It was very strange how my mind worked with music. Um, but yeah, I missed music. And I had my doubts here and there about things. I mean, there's no perfect community. The only perfect community is in the beatific vision, like in heaven. So
Mhm.
on earth, I mean, we've all sort of we all fall into our own ways, and some of us are gonna find find some things less favorable than other people will. I don't know. How do you say that diplomatically? So yeah, there are things that I didn't quite square up with. But I wouldn't say that these factors are enough to make me want to leave. So
Yeah. So what ultimately made you want to leave? I mean, you were mentioning that your brother got sick. Did that affect you to any degree or what?
I mean it did. He's fine, by the way. Just to
Hmm.
clarify, like it was a medical emergency, but it is not. It has nothing to do. There are no long-term symptoms, and he's okay. But no, it was a spiritual thing.
Hmm.
From the perspective that, for instance, the my spiritual director really thought my spirituality was more Eastern, and when I say Eastern, I'm talking Eastern Christian, and and that's certainly so. I mean, I came to the church reading Dionysius the Areopagite. I had a lot of trouble in it. Again, no, we're in inside baseball here, but I get a Thomistic monastery. So the philosophy of St. Thomas Aquinas, very um, uh, cataphatic, where I was very apophatic. If for all those listeners who took philosophy, they'll understand these. But so it's a different theological approach, and it is something that I did struggle with. Also, they were very convinced that I would do very well in a vocation, not in the Roman Catholic Church, but in the one of the Byzantine Catholic churches, so one of the Greek Catholic churches. So that's why I was sort of sent into the world to look into a vocation in the largest Greek Catholic Church in Canada is the Greco-Ukrainian Catholic Church. So I
Hmm.
went and spoke with priests there for a while, and that sort of helped with my vocation. But I think, not to paraphrase what the prior, who's the head of the monastery, said to me upon leaving, we love you being here. We everybody here loves you. You're a great part. You're a great part of the community. We're sad to not have you, but if it's God's will for you to be here, we wouldn't be seeing these signs. So I left on very, very good terms. I still even had a conversation with my spiritual director about a month ago. I just had a phone conversation. Um, and you know, so it was more of more having to do with my vocation specifically than it did about the monastery or anything negative that would have happened. Anything negative that happened. Sorry. So yeah, came back into the world, and then and I did discern away from a vocation in the church, and now I'm actually seeking actively the natural vocation. If if anybody is is I don't know what was on everybody's mind, but I really don't want people to. I don't want to put it into the perspective that I'm now still pursuing a vocation. I'm firmly in the realm of the natural vocation at the present moment.
So, I mean, obviously, your family played a big part in you leaving, right? Or
No, I wouldn't say that. I think that
no,
I mean
no.
there was like it was a mutual decision between myself and and the fathers of the monastery, but my family they weren't heavily influential in why I left. I mean, it
Yeah.
was certainly a burdening factor to have like my family not supporting me and stuff.
Hmm.
It was very, very tough. My you know, and a lot of the other brothers did come from very pious households, and so I came from a very different household. And
Like pious meaning religious.
pious meaning religious, yes. So
Okay.
very religious household.
Yeah.
I did not come from one. It was tough for my brother, and to put it into, I guess, really relative terms, like my dad just lost his wife of 44 years
Right.
And then he was losing his firstborn son, and my brother, the person he's known his entire life, was just going to be gone. So it was really tough on them, and I don't want to downplay that. And knowing it was tough on them made it tough on me. I of course missed them, but knowing that it was hurting them, that's when it would sort of get to me. And I didn't like that. But I wouldn't say that was a prominent factor in why I left. I mean, it was primarily theological, and also just for me to find additional spiritual discernment, like to leave the monastery and then to come out into the world and then to go back. And then, so yes, this is there is a lot more to it, and I don't know how much detail is really worth going into, because I just genuinely don't know if people would want to hear all of it. But I think that that my family did not play as big a role in me leaving.
How many times did you go back? Because you said that you left and then
So left
went
went back
a few times.
Yeah, no, left went back.
Okay.
It was only
so you took a break basically, and they allowed you to do that.
It wasn't no, it was to further spiritually discern. So I was to go in and speak with priests and everything, and discern, and then to discern formally if the Greek Catholic Church, vocation of the Greek Catholic Church was to be more spiritually beneficial, and also no, so not spiritually beneficial. That sounds really silly. It was going to be a better representation, or a better fit for my calling to serve our Lord. So it turned out I thought it might have been and everything, and so I continued to discern after having left the monastery, but I ultimately discerned out of that as well. But hey, I'm here now, and I'm happier than I ever was before I entered the monastery. I'm at a very good point in my life, and I'm very close to my family. I'm very close to my friends, and I just really want to say a big thank you to everybody who wanted to have me come back. If it wasn't for you guys, I don't even know if I would have bought DJ gear again. It feels nice to feel like you're really part of something, and to know that I can bring joy to the listeners in the same way that I talked about bringing joy to the people in the audience when I first played a big party. It's something very special to me. So,
do you have any pictures from when you were at the monastery? Like, were you allowed to do that? I mean, because you told me you shaved your head.
Yes.
I'm curious. I'm curious how you looked, because it's like I can't picture it. I can't picture it.
No pic. I don't know if there are pictures taken, but if you go on the website, the website of the monastery, I'm in a couple of the videos.
Plug it in.
I think it's carmelitemonks.org is the website. So if you guys want to check it out, I don't remember which one. You know what? That there are a lot of interactive videos and stuff on the website. They've done a wonderful job, really making making something of that website. It's gorgeous. So I would recommend checking it out, and then you can even see me with a shaved head in a couple of the videos. So yeah.
Did you ever make coffee? Because I know I looked this stuff up.
Yeah,
and I saw that they make coffee there at the monastery.
They roast coffee. That's correct. So they import beans and they roast them. So they have multiple different coffee roasters. It's a big way. All monasteries have to be self-sufficient, so they have to make money. So one of the ways that they do it, one of the ways the Carmelites in Wyoming do it is with coffee. But Carmelites generally, they abstain from alcohol. So they, all other monasteries will be known for distilling alcohol, brewing beer, making wine, that kind of thing. Carmelites are not allowed to. So they, there is a nice, not loophole, but there's a nice opportunity for making coffee. So I did not. To be a coffee roaster, you had to kind of specialize in it. I helped pack coffee. Like I helped bag the coffee before I was working on the working with the masonry crew. But no coffee roasting on my behalf. But I did drink a lot of coffee while I was there. So
you guys were allowed to drink coffee.
We were allowed to drink coffee. Yeah.
Because I mean, just talking in technicalities here, but it's technically a stimulant. It's a drug, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, uh,
Now, I without getting too into the weeds, I think there are differing levels of understanding of inebriation. I think
mhm.
oh my god, bad. It's like Catechism Canon 190 or something. It's been a long time since I
Okay.
thought about this, but anyway, no, yeah, coffee's okay as long as I mean, like anything, as long as it's not doing it in excess, because you can drink coffee to the point of near psychosis, and yeah, that's not
Right.
good. That is not good. But if you have a cup of coffee, you're unless you do have an allergic or medical reaction to it, you're generally going to be okay. And it's
Okay.
like you
Yeah.
can have a glass of wine and not get drunk. Well, at least most people can. Again, there are people with
And you weren't
but
allowed to have wine, no
no,
alcohol, even though wine
no.
is the blood of Christ and all that.
Well, no, wine is not the blood of Christ. The
Well,
wine.
that's what the priest says, right? When he
No, well,
when
okay.
he
Well, we are not getting into sacramental theology, but let me just tell you, what wine is not the blood of Christ. Wine is the species unto which the blood of Christ is transfigured, or sorry, transubstantiated. Oh, listen to me. I sound like. Actually, do you know what? Can we cut that part out and I'll answer it again?
Sure.
Yeah. I was gonna say, so the blood of the wine is not the blood of Christ. The wine is the species that is transubstantiated into blood of Christ. So in receiving communion, we will receive the blood of Christ, but
Mhm.
we won't. But we're not going to drink wine. So these are two very
Okay.
different things. So
Okay. Cool. So you left. You took a break from the monastery, and then you went back. And when was it that you actually left for good? Like what date was that?
the exact date,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember the exact date, but I mean
Hmm.
we're because okay, end of 2020. Like I mean,
Right.
I started back with my present company and did
Yeah.
in my new role December the 1st. So yeah, end of that's right, end of 2020. That doesn't make any sense. Sorry.
Mhm.
End of 2021. So coming into
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
apologize for having misspoke there.
Yeah. No. So what's interesting is that you were there for a year, give or take, and you took a break. Like it's weird because a lot of people are tuning into this and they're expecting to hear all about music, but this is interesting stuff. Like for somebody to really like discern into a monastery and all that, and for you to leave it and basically to not have any contact for almost a year with the outside world. What was that like to finally come out of it and finally see the world? Did you feel like maybe there was a pause in your life, or what was that like?
Um, it was different. I mean, the
Yeah.
plane ride home was strange. I mean, you're seeing
Yeah.
like just how much profanity people use. That was a big
Really?
oh
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
I mean yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
fuck this plane. It's taking
Yeah.
too long, too much turbulence,
Yeah, well, just no, just even in the airport, just hearing the way that people
Mhm.
would talk to each other, just I was like,
Right.
"Man, they're using a lot of profanity here, But no,
Wow.
I mean, it was nice to be. I mean, things had changed. Things had changed drastically. Like I missed the big part of COVID. I missed everything to do with COVID.
Mhm.
I know how bad the lockdowns were. I didn't experience
Oh,
any of
yeah.
that. So I came back into a still active COVID world. I still, the restaurants were shut down for a while when I came back.
Mhm.
Um, and it was strange. But it didn't really feel like much. I mean, to be honest, from the way that everyone was all locked indoors for all of COVID, I mean, my going away wasn't the biggest thing on everybody's mind, and that the world hadn't really changed that much. People had changed. Had the world
Mhm.
changed? I don't know. Came back to
Yeah.
um, friends who they taken on new paths in life. Friends who
Mm-hmm.
had sort of changed directions in a few different ways, but no drastic changes. I was able to kind of pick everything up where I left it, where I pick everything up where it was left off, I should say.
What was your dad's reaction when you came back? Was he like, "Oh, I knew it," or was he like, "Oh,
No,
was he
no.
loving or
He was
no?"
very loving. My dad was
Yeah.
very, very happy to see me, and I was very happy to
Mhm.
see him when I first, when I came back, especially permanently. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So you've been back for was it a year now?
No, less than a year. But I mean,
Less than a
yeah,
year.
yeah.
What was your plan when you came back? I mean, you
To
yeah,
discern.
what
Oh, sorry.
was yeah, well, yeah, no, like what was your plan? Obviously, you discerned from the monastery, but did you have it in your mind, okay, I'm going to be, because I remember using this term, I'm going to be a regular layman or something, or
Yeah,
yeah,
regular layman. Yeah, I mean
yeah.
that wasn't the initial plan. No, like I was
What
mentioning
was the
before,
plan?
that the plan was to potentially discern a vocation in the Greek Catholic.
Oh, that's right, the Greek Catholic
Yeah,
Church. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that's right. You
So,
mentioned that.
but
Yeah,
yeah, that and then
it didn't
I
work
had
out.
no, it's not that it didn't work out. I had a really stern talking to with a really old seasoned priest, and he was like, "Listen, you need to get yourself a girlfriend. You need to get married. You need to move on."
Really?
Yeah, he just full blown. No punches pulled. No treating me with kid gloves. He told me that, and I was like, okay, Father, thank you. And I told my spiritual director that, because you get priestly advice from a different
Mhm.
person than your spiritual director, and he was like, yep, he's not wrong. Get on it. And I was like, okay, I got you, Father.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So
That's pretty insane.
yeah,
And
I guess I didn't. So not that
yeah. Yeah.
crazy.
So
Considering all the things.
yeah, like I remember you gave me a call. Not a call. Yeah, was it you? Yeah, you did give me a call at the begin was at the beginning of this year at some point.
Mhm.
And totally unknown number because you had to get a new number. And
Correct.
then, I answer it and I'm like, he's like, you're like, and I'm like, hello, who is this?
Yeah.
And you're like, Davide Ferrara. And I'm like, oh, wow, really? And you're like, yeah. And then I'm like, well, what's up, man? And you're like, I want to come back on the show. I come back on the show. Yeah. Where did that come from? I mean, were you like, what really inspired you to get back into DJing?
Well, you know what? I remember I called you,
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, and you're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, you're like, listen, I'm
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of something. I'm calling you back though, and you
Mm-hmm.
call me back, and you're like, I don't think I insisted on coming back to this, but I don't remember
No,
specifically.
no. Well, okay. Obviously, I wait. Hold on.
I
Hold on.
mean,
No, hold on.
I
No, hold on. Why? I don't exactly remember, but I
I
know
don't
that.
remember.
Yeah. Like,
Anyway, you know what? Okay,
yeah,
because I remember I wanted to get back into DJing. I'm like, I gotta have a
yeah,
hobby. I always liked music, and what had
yeah.
happened was I got the DJ gear. And I called my friend to let him know because I was
Mm-hmm.
excited. And he's like, that's great. And then he like hung up the phone, called me back and was like, hey, I got you 2 bookings. I'm like, I don't want bookings. I just wanted to DJ, have some fun.
It's
And
too
then after
quick.
that, I was like, okay, you know what? And then you and I had already spoken on the phone. And then I called you again. And I was like, I bought DJ gear. And you're like, okay, when are you doing a set? Let's go. And I'm like,
Mm.
you tell
Yeah.
me. And then I did that live stream with a video and everything. And that's a great experience.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks again for having me. um,
What was it like
well,
to finally getting back into music? I mean, was it like, I mean,
it
how
was
did that feel, man?
it was strange to begin with, but
Yeah.
you know, it's like riding a bike. It came right back. And actually, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, I genuinely feel that I'm a better DJ now than I was going into the monastery. I don't know how that's
Mm.
worked out. I think I just have maybe a better appreciation of the craft itself, and I have just maybe a keener ear because I was away from it for longer, and I can appreciate it more. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I
Or maybe
genuinely I'm more.
subconsciously you just missed it so much, right? It's just,
So you know what? That could also be the
yeah.
case. I'm not gonna I'm
Yeah.
not gonna deny that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So
Definitely.
we 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 uh, we did that show. what is it, in June, the beginning of June. I remember
Yeah, it was
running
the
it by
beginning
you.
of June, yeah.
I'm like, can we call it Resurrection? Can we
No.
call it the Resurrection of DJ Davide? Can we do that? And obviously, you're like, no, I can wait. No, that would be very distasteful, and
Yeah,
so obviously,
blasphemy.
we didn't do that. But I'm like, oh, we gotta make a big deal. The resurrection, the revival. You're like, the revival is okay. I don't remember what we called it, but the return. We call it the return. But it's good to have you back. And obviously, you you came out of the monastery. You're still religious. You're still religious. You still attend church and everything like that.
Yep.
But what has your life been like since you got back? Like what have you you told me that you got your job back. Like what have you been up to? Like what's different now?
Well, it's not that I got my job back. I kind of got like a promotion.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Hey, you know
Um,
what? I should go to the monastery, come back. I'll get a promotion.
Yeah,
Let me just do that. Yeah.
So, but I've just been working. I've been making sure that
Right.
I've been really appreciating the relationships I have with people around me.
Yeah.
I mean, having some music to do is great, but yeah, just trying to make up for the years that I really devoted to becoming a monk, to just try to build a good future for myself. That's what I'm working on. I'm working a lot, which is great. I mean, hey, it keeps me out of trouble, keeps me busy, keeps me occupied, and yeah, just working on bettering myself in whatever way I can.
Do you still miss your mom every day?
No, every single day. She's in my daily prayers. I think about her every single day. There's not without a second. If a day went by that I didn't think about her, that would worry me. Yeah.
Are you closer with your family now that you're back, or?
Yeah, I mean, I am. I think especially now because like we were all living in the same house, and now that COVID's over and everything like that, like we're all living separately. So the time we do spend together is we cherish a lot more.
Cool.
Yeah.
You're in a relationship now too, which is pretty crazy. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And
well, I mean, it's okay to be fair. That is of all the things I've been part of in my life, being in a relationship with a loving woman is not that crazy. It's actually
it is. But the fact that you went through this journey and, like it wasn't really, your calling was to become a monk, and you weren't thinking about this stuff. And now you're in a relationship, which is, I mean, to me, it seems like a big change, right? And
it is a big change. That is certainly correct, and I agree with you on those grounds. But I was just trying to make a little light of it. That's all.
Yeah. Cool.
Great.
Yeah. Well, before we go, because I know you're tired. I know you're tired over there.
That's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Your eyes are droopy, and all that.
Hey, this is way past my bedtime.
It is way past your bedtime. If you're watching this right now, we had DJ Davide up till 3 a.m. He is, it was worth it.
Absolutely.
He's gonna get 2 hours of sleep.
Go back to work. Just stay up all night and go right to work. Oh,
exactly. Drink that monastery coffee.
Oh yeah. Mystic monk coffee.
Mystic monk coffee. Before we go, okay, we really have to. We just have to quickly touch on okay, when you first you got back into DJing. You bought equipment again. When we had our party, okay, was that your first gig back or what? Like your first in-person gig or no?
That was my third gig back. Third in-person gig. Yeah.
Okay.
But that party was better than that was one of the best parties I've ever played. That was absolutely wonderful. The energy was like, I can't even remember the last party where everything was electric. And from the moment the party started, like I went and got something to eat, and then when we came back at like 10:15, the place was rammed. And like
You came when it was empty, and then it
Yeah,
was
I came when it
rammed.
was empty, and then I came back and it was rammed. And then it
Yeah.
stayed because I was only supposed to play 1 to 2, but it stayed so packed that I played 1 to 3. Like that
Right.
just shows the energy. That was unbelievable. That was wonderful. And I have had feedback from close friends who've known me and known me as a DJ for, you know, in excess of a decade, who said that was the best set you ever did. And
Mhm.
I mean, I I got the audio. I have it up on my SoundCloud. It's a
Oh.
pretty decent set. I'm happy with it. But
Plug it in.
okay.
Plug it in. Plug in your SoundCloud.
Oh yeah, so SoundCloud is just DJ Davide Ferrara. So soundcloud.com
Mhm.
slash DJ Davide Ferrara. That's me. I have
Yeah.
I have my recent sets I've done, and then also some of my older productions from before I kind of disappeared from the music scene, which are all available for free download. So yeah, just get
Mhm.
into it. I'm gonna keep posting sets. I have the audio from my Love Parade party from last week that I still just have
Mhm.
to do a little bit of cleanup on, and then I'm going to post that up, and then going to keep on posting up material. Try to get at
Mhm.
least a setup every month. That's the plan.
What's the obviously you've been doing a few gigs here and there,
Hmm.
or you have 4 gigs or whatever, 5 gigs, whatever it may be. What's
Hmm.
what's what are your plans in the future? I mean, you're not like you're a regular layman, as you would say. I mean,
Hmm.
you're DJing now. What's
Yeah.
do you have any goals, any plans that are a part of the map, or what?
Musically or personally or both?
Both, both,
Okay.
both, both.
Musically, you
Yeah,
know what? I mean, there's been a lot of people asking me to start making music again. Um,
yeah.
I
Oh, you used to
think,
make me. We didn't even touch on that. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I think I might. I'm thinking about it. I mean,
really.
there's the big barrier of entry is the financial part of it, because like if I was going to kind of replicate what I had previously, but I mean there are other avenues. So, but it is something, and then but otherwise, I, you know, I don't know, getting married, living the rest of my life, and
Have
living like,
kids?
I mean, I'm not sure if kids are on the book, but I would certainly. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't thought enough about that, but I don't think
Mm-hmm.
kids are going to be kind of realistic at this point. Just uh, it just kind of because of how advanced we are in age. Just biology isn't exactly going to be on our side, and also I'm not sure where I
Mm-hmm.
stand on that
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. So yeah.
What about musically? Obviously, you're gonna make music. What about
Make
DJing?
me. I'll just keep DJing. I'll keep DJing until nobody wants to hear me anymore.
See,
Yeah.
it's crazy. I was like, it's we all said goodbye to you. We there was like the video, all these messages. Everyone thought you weren't coming back, and the fact that you're here again is just such a blessing.
Oh,
And
thank you.
no, it is, and the fact that that you grace us with your presence, that your sets are just incredible each and every single time. It's a pleasure having you at the gigs. We just did one, but maybe if we do another one, we'll have you there as well. But it's just yeah, I mean, I'm really happy, and I'm sure a lot of people, if not all people that are watching this, are happy that you're back, and that you're DJing again, and you're playing your music, and you're playing the underground stuff, because that's that's what you've been known for, right? So, and we really appreciated that Kappa suit that you wore at. And hey, it's coming back. It's coming. I actually bought a Kappa hoodie the other day,
No
and
way.
it's yeah, I did. You go to the
Oh,
Kappa website. They got some pretty good stuff there, and
nice.
it's coming back. It's like designer now, right?
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah. So,
Well,
but
thank you
yeah,
so much for those kind words. Honestly, like it means
um,
the absolute world to me. I'm glad that I'm glad that you enjoy what I do. And wow, I'm taken back. That was really heartfelt, and I really appreciate them, Maurizio. And I really, yeah, I love being back. I'm happy to be here. And
mhm.
if I can just continue to show my love for everybody musically, I'm going to do that. So, and and yeah, that's the biggest thing I can think of really is it's just had the influence that you've had over me to even come back, because
Mm.
I don't even know if I where I would be if it wasn't for you kind of giving me the opportunity to come on Euronation. I would have never had the exposure I have. I wouldn't have been able to be in the homes of all these wonderful people, and yeah. So I mean, it's actually I don't want to downplay just the role you had initially, and then the role in you even just bringing me back, like kicking and screaming for that final set. Yeah, but also just this coming back, like giving me the opportunity to come play at that wonderful party like that, being on the live stream. It's really meant a lot to me. So I wanted to just personally thank you for that. And also then a massive thank you to all the listeners who were feeding the ideas into your head the whole time. So it really means a lot to me. Like it's absolutely I'm absolutely smitten with the idea that that people would even want to have anything to do with me, let alone bring me back for things as great as this. So yeah, it's a huge thank you to everybody. I love you all.
I'm assuming you're not going to go back to vinyl, are you?
Probably not. I don't
No.
think after years of collecting it, I think
Mm.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see, but probably not.
Okay. Cool. Anything else before we end off? I mean, obviously, well, I don't know how long we've been going on. It's been like 40-minute sessions each time or
Yeah,
something like that.
who
But
knows? Who knows how long it's been?
this is a long one,
Mhm.
and rightfully so because of your story. I didn't want to touch on music, just music,
Yeah.
because hey, the music is one thing, but what really means a lot is the path and the story, the
Mhm.
real story behind it, right? And I feel like that's something that we touched on a little bit, and I know there's a lot more, but anything else that you want to say? You want to plug anything?
Um, Not much to really plug. I already gave you my
Mm-hmm.
SoundCloud. I mean, I could plug Euronation, but I think everybody's fairly plugged into that.
Yeah.
No, just yeah, yeah. My final parting words are just that big thank you to everybody.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, DJ Davide in the house. We're gonna have him back on at some point hopefully before the end of the year, right? Are you down for that?
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
You tell me the time, tell me the place, and I'm there.
maybe we'll have him back in November, and
No, that'd be great.
yeah, November will be great. We're almost we're in October basically, right? So we'll have him back in November, and then we're thinking about, here's a little surprise. We're thinking about another party. Okay. I didn't want to do one because it was so stressful. I lost some of my hair, you know, but I think it's good to keep things moving forward. Right. And we'll have more information on that if it happens down the road. DJ Davide in the house. We're inside behind the DJ. Okay. We're gonna have a couple more DJs on this segment coming up, and yeah, all right. Well, thanks a lot, DJ Davide, and we're gonna see you on the broadcast, and yeah, that's it, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure, and yeah, I look forward to everything that's going to come from Euronation going forward.
Cool. All right, take care, guys, and watch out for the next one.